Strategic discussion. Captain, this changes everything, Liam said, his voice tinged with concern. If they get their hands on the Nexus, our plans for revenge will be meaningless. We'll be fighting a losing battle. Brian nodded grimly. Agreed. We need to act fast and sabotage their efforts to locate the Nexus. It's our only chance to level the playing field. Formulating the plan. The team huddled together, quickly formulating a plan to throw a wrench into the Council's machinations. They would plant a series of explosives throughout the outpost, timed to detonate after they had safely escaped. The destruction would not only erase any evidence of their presence, but also deal a significant blow to the Andromedans' progress in their search for the Nexus. Ava, Teshi, you're with me, Brian ordered. We'll set the charges in the main data center and the power core. Liam, you and the others focus on the research labs and the communications hub. We need to make sure they can't recover any data or call for reinforcements. Setting the charges. The team split up, each group moving swiftly and silently through the outpost corridors. Brian, Ava, and Teshi reached the data center, their stealth suits allowing them to bypass the security measures with ease. They planted the explosives at key points, ensuring maximum damage to the Andromedan systems. As they moved on to the power core, Brian's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The Nexus represented a game-changer in the conflict between humans and the Galactic Council. It was a race against time, and the stakes had never been higher. The fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Escape and destruction. With the charges set, Brian and his team regrouped at the designated extraction point. They boarded their shuttlecraft, the explosives timers ticking down in sync with their own racing heartbeats. As they made their escape, the outpost erupted in a series of blinding explosions, the force of the blasts shaking the shuttlecraft as it sped away into the void of space. Brian let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They had struck a blow against the Andromedans, but he knew this was only the beginning. The battle for the Nexus had begun, and the humans would stop at nothing to ensure that this ancient power did not fall into the wrong hands. The future of the galaxy depended on it. The galactic confrontation. The aftermath. Back on the reconnaissance ship, the team gathered to analyze the information they had extracted from the Andromedan systems. The more they uncovered, the clearer the picture became. The Galactic Council was not just searching for the Nexus. They were preparing for war. They've been building a fleet, Liam said, his voice tight with tension. Warships, fighters, troop transports, all equipped with advanced weapons and shielding tech. It looks like they're getting ready to make a big push to find the Nexus. Strategic response. Brian studied the holographic display, his mind racing. The Council's military might was formidable, far beyond anything the humans had faced before. If they got their hands on the Nexus, there would be no stopping them. We need to find it first, Brian said, his voice filled with determination. And we need to find a way to neutralize that fleet. If the Council gets the Nexus, it's game over. Mission preparation. The team exchanged glances, the weight of their mission settling on their shoulders. They had come so far, but the true fight was just beginning. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the humans were the only ones who could tip the scales. The hidden archive. Brian gathered his team in the reconnaissance ship's briefing room, the holographic display casting a cool blue glow across their faces. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air as he outlined their next steps. We can't afford to let the Council get their hands on the Nexus, he said, his voice steady and resolute. We need to find it first. And to do that, we need more information. Liam stepped forward, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Our intel suggests that the Andromedans have a secret research facility hidden in the Zeta Quadrant. They've been studying ancient artifacts and texts related to the Nexus, trying to piece together its location. The challenge. In the grand hall of the alien palace, laughter echoed against the marble walls as Princess Serefia of the Drade Empire mocked the human captive before her. Major Liam Stryker stood tall, despite his chains and the jeering crowd. The Drade considered humans inferior, primitive beings unworthy of their attention. But Liam knew differently. Humanity had always thrived under pressure, and this moment would be no different. Princess Seraphia's eyes gleamed with contempt. You truly believe your kind can stand against the might of the Drades? Pathetic, she sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Liam remained silent, his mind racing with plans. He had been captured during a scouting mission, and the Drades had sentenced him to fight for their amusement. But he saw this as an opportunity. The arena was his chance to prove humanity's strength and resilience. The gate to the arena creaked open, and a massive beast lumbered out. It was a creature of nightmares, with scales like armor and teeth like daggers. The crowd roared in anticipation, eager to see the human fail. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the arena for any advantage. He spotted a loose chain on the wall and a pit of spikes nearby. He would need to be quick and smart. As the beast charged, Liam rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws. He darted between its legs, grabbing the chain and pulling it free. With a swift move, he wrapped the chain around the beast's legs, sending it crashing into the spikes. The crowd fell silent, gasps of shock filling the air. Liam stood victorious, breathing heavily. He met Seraphia's gaze, and for a moment, he saw something flicker in her eyes. Respect. Doubt? Warlord Krax, Seraphia's father, rose from his throne. Take him away, he commanded. Guards grabbed Liam, dragging him back to his cell. As he stumbled through the damp halls, he heard whispers of unrest. His victory had sown seeds of doubt among the Drades. In his cell, a guard named Zorax approached. You humans, I've seen the fire in you, he muttered. There are those among us who wish to see Krax overthrown. We could be allies. Liam's heart raced. An alliance with the Drades. It could be the key to humanity's survival. Tell me more, he urged. Over the next few days, Zorax and Liam shared information, building a bond of trust. They planned secretly, using whispers and hidden gestures. Liam learned the layout of the palace, the guard rotations, and the hidden caches of weapons. He also trained his body, lifting crude weights and practicing maneuvers. Every drop of sweat was a promise to himself and humanity. He would not fail. The day of the festival arrived, and Liam was brought back to the arena. But this time, he was not alone. Zorax had spread the word, and many Drades watched with anticipation, their loyalty wavering. The gate opened, and another beast charged at Liam. He moved with precision, using the arena's features to his advantage. He feinted left, then right, and finally drove the beast into a pit. The crowd erupted in chaos, their belief in Krax's invincibility shattered. As Liam stood panting, he saw Seraphia's face. She was no longer laughing. Her eyes were filled with a mix of fear and realization. The tides were turning, and humanity was at the forefront of this change. The rebellion begins. The grand hall of the palace buzzed with tension. Princess Seraphia stormed into the dungeon, her long cloak trailing behind her. Guards moved aside quickly as she approached Liam's cell. She tapped her finger on the glowing energy wall, and it hummed loudly. What do I owe this honor? Liam asked flatly. Seraphia's eyes scanned him closely. I came to see the human who laughs at death, she said with a smirk. You're full of surprises. Maybe you shouldn't judge a species by its quiet moments, Liam replied. Seraphia laughed coldly. Or maybe you're special, even among your weak kind. Their visits became routine. Seraphia poked and prodded for information about human tactics and strengths, but in her eagerness, the confident royal mask slipped. She complained of enemies at court, rivals, and a growing opposition. Secrets spilled out. Liam listened, sharing simple stories of human creativity and resolve, waiting patiently for his chance. It came when Seraphia mentioned technology. Humans lack advanced tech, she said dismissively. Supposedly, Liam replied. But what if I said we have technology that could change the balance here? Not just for war, but for life too. Her scorn faltered. Why would you share with us? Because I see a leader in you, someone who wants real change, Liam said steadily. Days passed, and trust grew. Serefia was less tense, more thoughtful. Their talks held mutual respect. Meanwhile, Warlord Krax focused on distant rebellions, unaware of the brewing uprising within his palace. One night, Zorax approached Liam with an energy blade. We hit them tonight. You in? He growled. Liam nodded. Yes. They made plans quickly. Zorax taught Liam Drade fight moves, fast strikes meant for bigger bodies. The festival is our chance. Krax will be busy. The city full. We strike hard, Zorax said. I'll be ready, Liam replied. That night, the palace banquet hall buzzed with voices and clinking dishes. Krax boasted loudly about conquering distant stars. Princess Serefia stood nearby, her face masked in icy pride. Liam's chains rattled as guards dragged him into the grand hall. They put him center stage, a human trophy for their amusement. Liam swept his eyes over the opulent scene, sensing the tense undercurrents and wordless plots exchanged in glances. Without warning, explosions shook the palace. Dust billowed from hallways, and alarms screamed. The guards lost their grip on Liam, who seized the moment, slamming his elbow into a guard's gut and snatching the keys from his belt. In seconds, the chains lay discarded. Zorax emerged through the smoke. He and Liam exchanged a swift nod. Together, they darted down hallways, reaching the central command. Inside, they faced Krax's elite guards. Zorax moved fast, crushing one guard with a heavy blow. Liam sliced the air with his energy blade, cutting down the second guard. Serefia appeared, her cloak smeared with soot. Her gaze conflicted between old and new. This wasn't the plan, she said. Liam didn't need words. Join us, he said, meeting her eyes. She hesitated but nodded. Show me this future. Inside the command center, they quickly disabled the palace defenses. Serefia spoke with conviction, planning side by side with Liam. Together, they ignited the spark of rebellion. The battle for freedom. The palace buzzed with energy as the rebellion took shape. Zorax secured the doors while Liam and Serefia strategized. The festival provided cover for their movements. The city was alive with celebration, and the perfect opportunity for their strike. The night before the attack, Liam couldn't sleep. He paced his makeshift quarters, going over the plan again and again. Everything had to go perfectly. There was no room for error, not with so many lives on the line. At dawn, the human Drade force moved out, creeping through the dense jungle toward the Cortex stronghold. Liam led the way, a grim determination etched on his face. Beside him, Zorax and his warriors moved with the silent grace of predators, eyes gleaming with anticipation. As they neared the enemy compound, Liam signaled for the Dauntless to begin its bombardment. The ship's advanced cannons roared to life, raining destruction down on the Cortex defenses. Explosions blossomed across the walls, throwing up plumes of dirt and debris. Alarms blared, and Cortex soldiers scrambled to their posts. But it was too late. Liam and Zorax led the charge, bursting through the shattered gates with a fierce battle cry. The Drade warriors surged forward, their new weapons fitting plasma bolts and armor-piercing rounds. The Cortex defenders fought back desperately, but they were outmatched and outgunned. The battle quickly descended into a brutal melee, with humans and Drades fighting side by side against the Cortex. Liam was in the thick of it, his plasma rifle blazing as he cut down enemy soldiers. Beside him, Zorax wielded a vicious warhammer, crushing Cortex skulls with every blow. But the Cortex refused to give in. They fought with the fanatical zeal of true believers, determined to hold their ground to the last. Liam saw several of his Marines go down, their armor pierced by enemy fire. Drade warriors fell too, painting the ground with their blood. Liam knew they had to end this quickly before the casualties mounted too high. He fought his way toward the center of the compound, where he knew the Cortex leader would be holed up. As he neared the command bunker, a hulking figure emerged from the shadows. It was Overlord Zarok, the brutal ruler of the Cortex. He was a monster of an alien, towering over Liam by several feet. His body was a mass of cybernetic enhancements, bristling with deadly weapons. "Foolish human," Zarok sneered, his voice a metallic rasp. "You dare to challenge the might of the Cortex. I will crush you like an insect." Liam didn't waste time with words. He leveled his plasma rifle and fired, but Zarok's energy shielding absorbed the shots. The Overlord lunged forward with blinding speed, his enhanced limbs a blur. Liam barely managed to dodge the first blow, feeling the wind of its passage. They traded blows back and forth, Liam's agility and skill matched against Zarok's raw strength and advanced technology. It was like fighting a machine, relentless and inexorable. Liam took a glancing hit to the ribs, feeling something crack. Pain flared through his body, but he pushed it aside. He couldn't afford to lose this fight. The fate of the Drades and the entire galaxy hung in the balance. With a roar of defiance, Liam launched himself at Zarok, tackling the Overlord to the ground. They grappled and rolled, smashing through walls and equipment. Liam managed to get his hands around Zarok's throat, squeezing with all his might. The Overlord thrashed and bucked, but Liam held on grimly, pouring every ounce of strength into his grip. Finally, with a sickening crunch, Zarok's neck snapped. The light faded from his cybernetic eyes, and he went limp. Liam staggered to his feet, his chest heaving with exertion. Around him, the battle was winding down. The few remaining Cortex survivors were rounded up and taken prisoner. As the Drades looted weapons and supplies from the outpost armory, Liam stood atop the shattered walls, watching his crew work side by side with their new allies. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it was a start. With the Drades at their side, they could begin to build a coalition against the Zorgans, one world at a time. There was still a long road ahead, and the Dauntless was a long way from home. But for the first time since the disastrous battle that had stranded them here, Liam allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. The Zorgans had underestimated the tenacity of the human spirit, and that mistake would be their downfall. The journey home. The Dauntless drifted through the infinite darkness of space, a battered and broken shell of its former self. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly to bring the crippled ship back to life. They jury-rigged bypasses for fried circuits, sealed hull breaches with emergency foam, and rerouted power from damaged systems. It was a race against time. If they couldn't get life support fully operational soon, they'd all succumb to the cold embrace of the void. In the CIC, Liam pored over star charts with his navigation officer, trying to determine their position. The experimental jump had hurled them clear across the galaxy, far beyond the borders of known space. They were well and truly lost, with no clear path back to Earth. "We need to set down somewhere," Liam said, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. "Find a planet with a breathable atmosphere and resources we can use to repair the ship." The nav officer nodded, his fingers dancing across the console. "I got a candidate, sir. Fourth planet in a nearby system. Scans show it's habitable, with large deposits of metal ores and organic compounds. Take us in, Lieutenant." Nice and easy. The Dauntless limped into orbit around the planet, its damaged engines straining with the effort. As they descended through the atmosphere, Liam got his first good look at their potential salvation. Rolling green hills and dense forests stretched out below them, crisscrossed by wide, slow-moving rivers. It looked like a paradise, untouched by the ravages of war. But as they drew closer, Liam spotted signs of civilization. Primitive villages huddled along the riverbanks, connected by well-worn dirt roads. He frowned, realizing that this world was already inhabited. First contact with a new species was always a delicate matter, fraught with potential dangers. But they had no choice. They needed those resources if they hoped to survive. Liam assembled an away team and took a shuttle down to the surface, touching down on the outskirts of the largest village they'd seen. Almost immediately, they were surrounded by a group of wary-looking aliens brandishing spears and bows. Liam stepped out of the shuttle slowly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. The aliens were humanoid, but their skin was a mottled green, and their faces were dominated by large almond-shaped eyes. They wore simple tunics woven from rough fibers and carried themselves with the air of a people accustomed to hardship. "I am Captain Liam, Striker of the United Earth Fleet," he said, using the shuttle's external speakers to amplify his voice. "We come in peace, seeking your help." There was a tense standoff as the aliens shifted uneasily, unsure what to make of these strange visitors from the sky. Finally, one of them stepped forward, a tall, broad-shouldered male with an ornate headdress of colorful feathers. "I am Chief Zalen of the Vax," he said. "Why have you come to our world, Earther?" Liam explained their situation: the battle with the Zorgans, the damage to their ship, their desperate need for resources to make repairs. As he spoke, he could see the fear and mistrust in Zalen's eyes slowly giving way to understanding. "We too know the pain of oppression," the chief said. "For generations, my people have lived under the boot of the Cortex, a cruel race that sees us as nothing more than slaves to be worked and discarded. They take our resources, our children, our very lives. We fight back as we can, but they are too strong." Liam's mind raced with possibilities. If the Vax were already fighting against another hostile species, perhaps they could be convinced to join forces against the Zorgans as well. An alliance between their peoples could tip the balance of power in this region of space. "Chief Zalen," he said carefully, "my people are also at war with a great enemy, one that threatens to enslave or destroy every other race they encounter. But we have technology and weapons far beyond what the Cortex possess. If you agree to help us repair our ship and resupply, we can teach you how to fight back against your oppressors. Together, we could free your people and ensure that no one ever threatens your way of life again." Liam could see the wheels turning behind Zalen's eyes as he weighed the offer. Finally, he nodded slowly. "We have long dreamed of throwing off the yoke of Cortex rule," he said. "If you can truly help us achieve this, Earther, then you will have the gratitude and allegiance of the Vax. Come, let us talk more in the Longhouse." Over the next several days, a partnership began to take shape. The Vax helped the dauntless crew salvage materials to patch the hull and rebuild damaged systems. In return, Liam and his officers trained the aliens in tactics and combat techniques honed in the crucible of war against the Zorgans. The Vax learned quickly, their natural cunning and ferocity making them apt pupils. As trust grew between the two groups, Liam and Zalen spent long hours in the chief's longhouse, smoking pungent herbs and strategizing for the battles to come. Zalen described the layout of the nearest Cortex outpost, a fortified compound bristling with guards and gun emplacements. "We've tried to assault it before," the chief said, shaking his head. "But their weapons cut us down before we could even reach the walls." Liam leaned forward, a fierce glint in his eye. "With my people at your side, those walls won't stand a chance. We'll catch them by surprise, strike hard and fast, and be gone before they know what hit them. And when word spreads of what we've done here, the other slave races will rise up as one to cast off their chains." Zalen grinned, baring sharp teeth. "You have the heart of a Vax, Captain. I begin to believe we may yet see a day when the Cortex are nothing but a bad memory." The Alliance. Over the next week, the unlikely allies honed their plan, scouting the Cortex compound and gathering intelligence on its defenses. The crew of the Dauntless worked feverishly to modify Vax weapons with human technology, equipping them with armor-piercing rounds and targeting systems to counter the enemy's superior firepower. Finally, as twin moons rose over the planet's dense jungles, Liam and Zalen led their combined force in a lightning raid on the outpost. The humans' element of surprise proved decisive. Vax warriors swarmed over the walls as the dauntless crew laid down covering fire, their advanced weapons cutting through Cortex armor like paper. Within minutes, the compound was theirs, the few remaining Cortex survivors rounded up and taken prisoner. As the Vax looted weapons and supplies from the outpost armory, Liam stood atop the shattered walls, watching his crew work side by side with their new allies. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it was a start. With the Vax at their side, they could begin to build a coalition against the Zorgans, one world at a time. There was still a long road ahead, and the Dauntless was a long way from home. But for the first time since the disastrous battle that had stranded them here, Liam allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. The Zorgans had underestimated the tenacity of the human spirit, and that mistake would be their downfall. The final stand. The battle was quick but fierce. The Loyalists saw their resolve and cause was lost. Weapons clattered down in final defeat. Liam stood tall among his team, Serifia at his side. Around them, humans and Draids aided all wounded regardless of past allegiance. They offered water, aid, and a hand up. After the battle, in the smoking ruins, they understood they were not just warriors or rebels. They were builders of a new world. They would stand together, whatever it took, igniting the light of hope they fought so hard for. Elena Martinez stared at the Draid recruits standing stiffly in front of her on the hot training ground. The sun beat down, cooking the area, but it did not stop the determination in the Draid's eyes. They used to follow orders. Now they wanted to learn to fight for themselves. "Today we'll practice taking buildings with few deaths," Elena said sharply. She took the squad into a fake city block made of containers and holograms. Every street could kill them. The Draids moved in teams, watching each other's backs. They blew open doors precisely. Martinez fixed their stance, grip and aim with a touch or look. Her human team wore black, moving like ghosts. They showed the Draids how to communicate silently and quickly. In each practice, the recruits improved. They took Martinez's blunt criticism and adapted. They learned the dangerous dance of urban war, heart-pounding, room by room. By sunset, the militia could clear a building twice as fast as that morning. Tired but sure, they saluted the humans, their scales shining with the day's hard work. In the government halls, Princess Serafia fought a different battle. The throne room buzzed with diplomats. Every meeting and deal was part of a bigger plan. She stood firmly before her council. Food must be distributed fairly. All cities and towns get food. No one is hungry, she said. Advisors whispered objections, but Serafia held firm. The fresh bandages on her arm reminded them of their cause. Her eyes moved to the holographic map, dotted with supply points, shelters, and garrisons. She touched the map, and the holograms responded. She adjusted resources live. This was her vision. A world where might enabled right, old wounds healed under equality. A noble, Long, her opponent, challenged her. "Princess, you ask us to trust past enemies. How can you be sure of their intentions?" Serafia stared back, steady. "Because I trust their actions. Humans fight and bleed alongside us. They offer knowledge and strength. We will do the same." Nods of agreement spread through the room. Even hardened skeptics saw the wisdom in her words. Ties between humans and Draids grew stronger with each policy under her command. In space, word of their unity spread. It was a beacon against old hate. Messages of support were exchanged, each one proof of what two different people could achieve together. Under the sky that once promised death, there was now hushed awe at newfound peace. Captain Martinez trained bodies to defend. Princess Serafia trained hearts to trust. Together, they took apart the last pieces of the old age of division. A new dawn. Liam's gaze locked onto the screen in the cruiser's command room. Squares and circles, troops and vehicles, blinking lights, spacecraft. Urgent voices filled the hum. Screens showed the bleak, rocky moon surface. "Target locked. Strike ready," a voice called out. "Confirm, no collateral." Liam's voice cut sharp and clear. A nod. Fingers danced across the controls. A beep echoed. Confirmed. Fire. Silence fell. The cannons growled, charging up. Streaks of light rained down through the window. Dust clouds erupted below, visible from orbit. The room held its breath. Screens flickered, the aftermath. Stronghold structures now crumbled ruins. Blasts confirmed. Hidden ammo dumps destroyed. Strike complete, reported the technician. Liam turned to the soldiers behind him, humans and Drades, armor reflecting light. He swept his gaze over them, over the faces of those who followed him. Dropships ready. Broadcast begins. His voice rang out. A ripple passed through the ranks. This was it, the culmination. Screens switched views, dropships descending onto chaotic ground. We lead with honor. No conquerors here, liberators. Hit fast, hit hard, spare all unnecessary lives. Liam instructed clearly and directly. They moved as one fluid determination. Bay doors opened to void and cold stars. Engines roared. Dropships tore through thin atmosphere, metal groaning against the moon's pull. Liam stood firm by the hatch, eyes fixed out the window at the fast-approaching rocky ground. The ship landed with a thud, dust billowing. The hatch dropped open, jagged peaks and desolate wind greeted them. Liam jumped first, boots kicking up dust. Troops spilled out behind him, forming ranks. His breath puffed visible as he scanned the area, senses wired and ready. Form up, move out, eyes sharp. His barking orders cut through the thin air. The soldiers split into precise groups, footsteps barely whispers. They'd moved with purpose over the broken ground. Liam watched the dark enemy base outlined against the horizon. Shadows flickered along the edge, rallying loyalists. His finger hovered over his weapon. He pointed ahead, the only signal needed. His troops surged like a rising tide against stubborn resistance. Clash of weapons, hammer of noise. Liam's team advanced behind suppressive fire. They broke through the line. Liam ducked, rolled, rose, firing. Defenses crumbled as they secured ground. Clear rang out over comms. Liam moved through the compound, alert for lethal corners, senses focused, training grounding him. The fighting drew them toward the central control hub. There, desperate loyalists fired wildly. Liam's team responded with a hail of return fire, pinning them down. He spotted the central door. Two men moved forward with charges, stepped sure on the dust. The door exploded, reduced to memory. They breached, sweeping the corridors. No mercy, no hesitation. Enemy resolve faltered, room by room. The loyalist nest was cleared out. No cheers, just steady, orderly progress. Commands followed without question. Drades and humans worked together, watching each other's backs. Liam paused outside the central room, caught his breath, stepped through. Screens flickered, consoles showing the loyalist nerve center. Reaching for weapons, the loyalists inside realized too late. Liam's presence tightened the vice. His flanking troops formed a steel wall. Stand down. Fight's over, Liam commanded. The room guns clattered to the floor as they stepped back, defeated. Liam keyed his radio. HQ, ground team. Moon secured. Copy. A voice, copy, ground team. Well done. Alliance holds. Liam looked out at the mix of humans and Drades. Together, they had defied the odds and crushed the threat to their unity. In the moon's silent grip, a new dawn emerged. Their victory proved the Alliance's strength. No longer just allies, now comrades bound by shared purpose under distant stars. They waited for the next order, but no order came, just a cheer echoing from Zeos to the stars beyond. They had not just survived. They had triumphed together.